I'm LeAnn McCready with the American Red Cross. I'm interviewing James O. Sewell, Sonny,
Yes.
on September 17th, 2024 at Claremore, Oklahoma. Also present with us is BJ Foster, who is operating the camera. The interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress.
Gee, that sounds important.
It is. What's your full and complete name?
My given name is James Oliver Sewell.
Okay.
Oliver, a middle name from my father's brother. My father's family came to Oklahoma in a covered wagon before statehood.
Okay.
He's of Indian heritage. It was the Trail of Tears at the end. And the family stopped off in Arkansas for my father's birth. And he often spoke about remembering the Trail of Tears and remembering the 14 days it took to get to Oklahoma. And I've been watching a few Westerns on TV of late, and I've come to realize how small a covered wagon base is, with 5 kids, mom and dad, and a person called Little Granny, and their belongings.
Oh my
And it
goodness.
rained 10 of those 14 days. That's pioneering.
Yeah.
And he had no education, neither did my mom. She's from German heritage in the Ukraine, when there was a part of Russia, and all the Germans that were wise enough and capable enough came to settle in the Dakotas and that area. Unfortunately, by the fate, Mom was born in Oklahoma many years later, but neither she had an education nor my dad, as I said, because she spoke only German. How far do you get speaking German in a little country school? So that's my name. My German grandmother said to me, Sonny, what's going to happen to you when you're an old man in your 80s and you walk down the streets of Coweta, where I was born, and someone says, good morning, Sonny. And I said, well, I guess I'll say good morning to you too. It's never bothered me, but then as you grow up and you leave family and friends and former life and get a job, you're Jim, and then you're this and you're that, whatever else people call you, and eventually Papa, because I have great grandkids by adoption, 4 of whom are now playing in the National Football Leagues, professional football.
Oh, wow.
But that's a long story, and I don't know what channel you wish me to begin, other than just to start to talk as I'm talking now.
Well, I want to know when your birth date is.
Oh, it's April 26, 1931.
Okay. And where did you say
In
you're born?
Coweta,
Coweta,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Coweta.
No.
It's with a C, but it's with a K in Georgia. It's probably a creek name.
Oh, I see. Probably is.
Yeah.
So your family, you said your dad and mom, what were their occupations? I mean, what did they finally do when they
Dad was a
got to
farmer.
Oklahoma? He was a farmer, okay. He had some land?
Well, and then, of course, he got older. He and my uncle Oliver, Uncle Oliver, I'm reciting my name, began their oil business, and they were quite successful during the Depression of all time. They did quite well, but then the oil scene had a downturn, and Dad did several other things to survive. By that time, he had a family of 5 children, and we didn't question the aspect of survival as children, because we were loved and nourished, and we had the example of parents who were devoted and who knew how to live and how to die, and that was their gift to me.
Right.
So I had a German friend who was bombed out of her Munich home twice in World War II, and fortunately she came here after the war on a scholarship in Indiana Earlham University. I think it's a Quaker school. And she graduated from there and flew immediately to San Francisco, where she worked for the San Francisco Chronicle, where she met her husband. And anyway, as she was dying, decades later, and those decades I knew her and her husband and her family, and we were very close. And there's a wonderful relationship. And she called me one day to tell me that she was entering hospice, and she asked me if I wanted to come out to be with her, and I took the first flight I could get. And in the quietness of the evenings when others had gone, we spoke lovingly and honestly about our association and what we had learned, being fortunate enough to have each other and the family together in all those wonderful times. But she said this to me: Jim, are you telling me that you had no one to assist you with money when you were in college? And it struck me. But the more I thought about it, I thought, thank you, God. No one had any money. How could I have asked someone for money to go to college when, number one, they didn't know what college was? They had no reference.
Right.
And number two, they didn't understand why I was wanting to go to college. And number three is, I love them. You don't ask someone for something they don't have, knowing that it would hurt them even more. So they never asked me what I was taking.
Your parents, you mean?
My parents, yes. No one did.
Right.
Because again, they had no point of reference what a college education was, but they were perfect for me.
So did they complete any education?
Second or third grade, perhaps.
Okay.
They both wrote. They both used good English. I'm an English teacher.
Okay.
I never had to correct my parents, and I'm not talking about, I'm talking about ordinary conversation parents have with children.
Right.
They were exactly what I needed in life, but I learned that I needed something different.
Right.
I felt different from the time I was a little kid. I played with the other kids, but I wasn't the one to throw a rock, and I can show you the scars I have in play, innocently,
Oh, sure.
not unkindly. It's just growing up. It's a fact of life that scars are real because they show us the past was real.
Right.
And so here we are. You wanted to find out who I am, and I can tell you, I can talk far beyond the time allotted to me, but I've known all my life who I am.
That's amazing, really.
Well, it certainly is, because there were other people telling me I was something else.
Right.
And I was not, I knew I was not that. I could not take certain courses in high school. The war was on, all the good teachers were gone. I had no pig to take FFA and learn how to castrate a pig. So what did I take? I took typing and shorthand.
Okay.
And I was called a sissy. But I can type like no other
You need it
person.
today for the
Yeah,
computers.
Yeah.
But you don't see a typewriter. And when I was in basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, the commanding officer came out one morning, and here were 300 of us in detention, and he said, "How many of you young bastards can type?" And I'd been told, don't volunteer for anything, let your life happen. But I thought, I'm not ashamed. I raised my hand. I know there were only 3 of us out of 300 that could type, because the majority were blacks from the South. I doubt they'd even seen a typewriter. And now, decades later, who sees a typewriter?
Right.
Yeah.
Sure, you have that basic rhythm.
Oh, yes.
It helps.
It helps a lot.
But on the other hand, there are too many people doing this.
Oh, yes, that's
So
right.
I grew up learning typing and shorthand, and that set the model for the rest of my life. Because I worked for men who were presidents of companies, Sooner Federal, the Grants, who started Sooner Federal Savings and Loan Association, now defunct. I worked for 2 governors when I was in the Pacific as a teacher. realizing that I could live on an island where it rains 300 inches of rain a year, and you're isolated with a cadre of maybe 200 Americans there, causing all kinds of confusion, the Americans wanting to fence off the only good swimming hole in the area where we were living to avoid little Samoans from coming over. Hey, it hasn't changed. The world is still that sad.
It is.
So, okay, I probably,
That's fine. Did you have, now your other brothers and sisters, what, did they stay at home, or, I mean, where did they end up? Didn't you have 4 other brothers and
yes.
siblings?
Well, my 2 older sisters, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous women, dark hair and bronze skin, and married early. One married a soldier who'd come to Muskogee, Oklahoma at Camp Gruber during the war. And my sister Pauline, second sister, would go there to dance, and she met this handsome young Californian, and in 2 weeks they married, and he went to fight for 5 years, and she went to California to live. My oldest sister married a farmer, a local farmer, and they lived almost in isolation in the country. I'm sorry that she chose a closeted community, and she concentrated basically on her 2 boys. And that was what a farmer's wife did.
Right.
And her husband died here in his 80s. He went into dementia. So that was my oldest 2. I was the 3rd child of 5, and my brother grew up, went to high school, and the year I left for the Pacific in the 60s, yes, in the 60s, he and his girlfriend got married, still in high school, and what a difficulty that caused, because he was exactly like my father, and Dad wanted something more than an early marriage for my brother, but Ted proved worthy of my father's love, and was exactly like my dad. He can do anything. He can build a house alone. And as an example, I have to tell you this if I say nothing else. I built a house for my parents when I was in the Pacific, and that was one of my purposes in going there, to get a job, to build a house for them, because we lost our house when I was in my teens, and that hurt, because I felt my parents deserved more. And since I was unmarried, I fulfilled that promise. And I built a house for them in Coita on a half acre. My father drilled the water well there, and one summer he wanted to build a cedar rail fence around the property. It was a half acre. I sent him the money, he bought the rails, and I came back on holiday. I had my breakfast with Mom and went out to say to my Dad, I'm here to help you. Give me the post hole digger. And he handed me the post hole digger, and he looked at me when I'd finished and said this. This was not said in anger. This was said in truth. I'm going to divert a little bit. There was a poem that John Keats wrote about a Grecian urn. He described the urn, and the last line of the poem is this: there are 2 things you need to know in this world, you who are living here. One is truth, and the other is beauty. And beauty is truth, and truth is beauty. That didn't mean much to me as a junior in high school. I can write a whole book about each of those, because I can write experiences as the one I'm going to tell you about my father and me that morning, building a rail fence. He looked at me and he said this: you cannot even dig a hole in the ground like your brother. That stung, but it stung with honesty and love, because he told me who I knew already. I am not my brother. And so I said to him, thank you, God, I didn't lose it. I said to Dad, you're right, Dad. Ted can dig a post hole, but he cannot write a letter. I can. That meant nothing to my dad. He thought he had told me something, and he had, believe me, one of the truths of my life.
Wow.
Because we need the truth. And when it's true, it's beautiful. And I'll never forget those words of my father, because I know he loved me. He was telling me something that made me understand who I was a little bit more than I did up to that time. So I've diverted, I'm sure.
That's fine. That's great. It's your interview. So what about your other brother?
I just had a younger sister.
Oh, what about her?
About her?
Yeah, what happened to her?
Well, she married a cowboy and had a cowboy's wife's life.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he was not the best husband. But he died here in this facility too.
Oh, really?
In his 90s. So this is an old home place.
Well, so did you have any other family members who went into the military besides you?
I had lots of cousins in World War II.
Okay.
And they came back, and the first thing they said to me was, you're too young for this war, you'll be too old for the next one. Little did history confirm that. But again,
So they were glad, right, that you were...
yes, they were saying that they did not have to see what they saw.
Right.
And I started to use the verb suffer. All wartime is not suffering. I'm an example of that. As I said, I typed because I could type.
You didn't physically suffer.
I was made physical. I was made permanent party at the hospital at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And I worked in the section that was responsible for interviewing and examining new inductees and those who were getting out, or those who couldn't make the grade and had a team of medical people confirmed that should be discharged.
So is this that was at basic training area, right?
Well,
Is that where you went to basic
that,
training?
That was after my 18 weeks basic
Right,
training.
but you were at
And
Fort Leonard Wood for basic training?
For my total experience in the
Oh.
war.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have to go to Korea, which pleased me.
Oh, okay.
But then at the same time, it disappointed me, because when I was discharged and could go back to college and become qualified to do something in my life professionally, then I could go to Tulsa with $5 in my pocket from the last of my GI Bill, thank you very much, and walked into the Western Union office downtown Tulsa, past the marquee of the Rialto, I think it was Rialto, of the Orpheum Theater, and there was the emblazoned sign that there was a movie on Pongo Pongo, American Samoa, which meant nothing to me. And I'm a good geographist. Mrs. Cox in the 5th grade said to us one day as we walked into class, today we're going to study other rivers of the world. And I thought, wow, other rivers besides the Arkansas and the Verdigris. And I swore I'd see as many of those as I possibly could in my life, and I have.
Very good.
So here I am with $5 in my pocket. I went to Western Union. I could only send one telegram then in the 50s for $5. So I just went down the list of all the territories and possessions, came again to Pongo Pongo, American Samoa, sent a telegram. In 3 months I was there. And at that time, it was a prop plane from Tulsa to Hawaii, from Hawaii on to Fiji. There were no direct flights to Samoa, which is one of our possessions. At the time, the population was 35,000. There were 35,000 Marines there during the war, so you can imagine there were all kinds of little biracial kids running around the sands of the island, and that influenced me in my life. So
So what did you do there?
I was a teacher.
Oh, okay.
When I got my GI Bill and could go back to college,
Right.
and I didn't have to worry about how I was going to find something else to eat. I wasn't starving, but you know, every once in a while you need a hamburger.
So where did you go to college?
Telecall, Northeastern
Oh,
State
okay.
University, which was
Okay.
teachers' college at that time.
Okay.
And so I went in. I was trying to remember your question. Your question was, what did I? Oh, I have straight A's in college. I was president of Alpha Chi, which is the honor society. I didn't fool around, even after I had the money to go to, because I knew I was there for a purpose. And as soon as I got my degree, I went back for my transcript with all of these good grades on it, with a sense of pride that I now had something to show and confirm who I knew I was internally and where my future lay.
Mm-hmm.
And my university professor said to me, "You can make that much money, $3,900 a year as a teacher, and you can make that much money in Oklahoma." And I said, "Yes, but I haven't been overseas. I want to go now." And I went now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I arrived on the plane in Samoa, the principal of the high school, Dick Greer, met me. And he was a very stern man with a speech like this, and you knew not to squirm. Answer the question. "You're Jim Sewell?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I don't know what it is you're running away from, but whatever it is, you've come to the wrong place." And I thought, welcome to Samoa. Again, it was one of those truths of life. I'm so glad he said that to me, because he was telling me, if you're an alcoholic, you're really going to be an alcoholic here, brother, where
Right.
life is isolated, and you're with other Americans who can be isolating in their thinking. And I taught for 6 months. I was offered a job in the governor's office. My salary increased from $3,900 to $8,000 a year. And I could see that house I promised myself I'd build for my mom and dad, which I did. I worked there 10 years for 2 governors, and I did a good job. I have top secret clearance twice. I was interviewed and got top secret clearance, once in Samoa, the other when I worked for American Airlines. So I'm adding all these little details because as a person who filled out that form in basic training in Leonard Wood, the very last question was this: are you homosexual, or do you have homosexual tendencies?
Really?
I hardly knew what the word was. How could I have known anything
Right.
with what I had been gifted at life, which is better than a lot of people, and I wouldn't trade it, because it made me who I am. And I knew that if I didn't lie, I don't like to lie, but I knew if I said yes, there would be a mark on my records, and it's proved. It's proved.
Oh, sure.
Because there's a congressional cemetery outside the Capitol building. J. Edgar Hoover, who was a homosexual man, and his partner are both buried there, separate graves. There's also another one there, which is a point of interest by the Jewish people. It was a Jewish soldier who had died. His name, his birth, listed there. And underneath in a carving it says simply this: they gave me a medal for killing 2 men and a discharge for loving 1. How far can we come in this country? We have to be careful, or we'll lose what freedoms we have.
That's right.
So here I am. I worked for 2 governors. I came back and tried to establish my life here. But in the process, I don't know whether to get into this, whether it be of interest to anyone other than one evening. Here I go. One evening, my fellow teacher said to me, "Come out to the house, Jim. I want you to meet my family." And I drove my Jeep out. It was twilight almost. And as I approached the house, from around the side of the house, a figure approached my Jeep and walked over to where I was and introduced himself. He was the only person in my 73 years, my twin. April 26, 1931. He was born on an island, a little atoll in the Pacific. I was born in Oklahoma. And we found each other, finally. Tautua and I hiked. He didn't have a job at that point. We spent our time hiking and reading and talking and getting to know lifestyles, if you could call living on a sand beach in the middle of the Pacific Ocean a lifestyle. One day I walked out of the governor's office, and I saw his sister there at the veranda and spoke to her and asked about him. It had been a week since I had seen him, and we'd hiked over the mountains. And she said, "You didn't hear?" And I said, "Hear what?" She said, "He was killed. He got his job, first job at the Public Works Department, and he was electrocuted." At that point, most islanders wore no shoes, not even flip-flops. Most men wore just a piece of fabric, 2 yards maybe, around the torso. They were barefoot. They didn't wear a shirt unless they went someplace like church. Then they dressed in white. So life was simpler there. It's nothing as it is now. So I lost my twin, and as we crossed the mountain toward that far off village that was our goal to spend the weekend, just soaking in the bay, children were playing, and we spoke as we passed by, and one of the children looked at me, probably 13 at that time, and I don't pretend to have much conversation with God, but something said to me about that child. "I don't know who you are, but I shall be instrumental in your life." And it bothered me because Tautua, my twin, had just come into my life, and I wanted to bring him to the States and buy him his first pair of shoes and see that he got a decent education. But Tautua was gone now, and grief is the price we pay for love. I eventually checked that child's family, and at that time it was common to put on a birth certificate a father unknown. Well, he knew his father. His father was a Marine. I eventually brought him to the States, and through a lot of, he lived with my parents for his last year of high school. He started to Tahlequah, to my college, with the understanding that if you start, by damn, you're going to finish. I'm not spending any sweat equity on you. It cost me 2.5 cars, but he finished. He went back after he finished to the islands, married a woman, beautiful lady, had 4 kids, adopted 2, divorced the first one, married the second one. He's now living in Las Vegas. We have a relationship, little r, because our lives have gone different routes, but he is the grandfather of the 4 footballers playing football today. I am their great-grandfathers purely because one day he called me at work at American Airlines and wanted to be adopted. And I said, why, after all these years? And he said, because the children look to the family in Oklahoma as being their Ainga. That's A-I-G-A, meaning family. And so I said yes. We went to Wagner, no problem. Single man, a young man. We're now Sewells. So that's why I have this adopted side of who I am.
Now, who worked for American? You worked for American Airlines?
Yes.
Okay.
I worked for Sooner Federal. I was corporate secretary for the Grants. The Grant family established Sooner Federal. It's now defunct.
Oh.
But it was the largest savings and loan in Oklahoma. Going big guns, built the new building at 404 South Boston. But something in me wanted more. It was too confining. And so I knew American Airlines could supply that, which I knew in the Pacific, of discovery again, new cultures, new worlds out there, new rivers, besides the Arkansas and the verdigris. And so I applied and was chosen the secretary to a corporate vice president who was in charge of contracts. And so that meant he needed a man to travel with him, not a woman then. That's changed, thank God. And I could travel with him and carry a Selectric typewriter, which is
Yes.
heavy, and run from gate to gate and take dictation from Mr. Gilbert wherever he decided to call me in the middle of the night. I traveled with him. In fact, I was at American Airlines when women's pantsuits were declared legal. So that's it, and that was only in the, when was I there? In the 70s. That's how much things have changed. A pantsuit?
Really?
We don't even call them pantsuits anymore. Just slacks. So where am I in my life? I had my parents living with me.
And where was that? At that time? Where was that? Were your
In
parents?
Coweta. I built the house.
Yes, but they lived with you?
Yes.
You lived in Coweta at
Yes.
that time?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I moved back to Coweta.
Okay.
I came back to the States to be sure Junior finished college. And Junior finished college, and then he left without a goodbye. Life is interesting. Very interesting.
Now, who paid for his college? You did?
I did,
Yeah. Okay.
plus the 2.5 cars. But look, that's a mistake. And I knew it at the time, but I also knew that if he had anything in him that was worth having, he would appreciate a diploma. Because in the island, diplomas are framed and put on the folly, the thatched roofed houses that Samoans lived in, and revered as much as a marriage license. So anyway, he's had a pretty good life. It could have been better had he known me, but he wasn't interested in me. That's because he grew up on an island with no shoes. And them shoes don't make the person, but they show a little bit of advancement. I've probably caused such a confusion of who I am as a human being, but I know.
Right.
And I'm here now in a facility where, and I have to use the word honored, almost to the extent when I was handed a card or two in a VA facility, thank you for your service, I sort of went like this because, again, I didn't fight, I typed. But because I typed, there were some medical records that were recorded, at that time, and I did what the Army asked me to do.
Yeah, we've heard that before. I
Good.
didn't do anything. They think they didn't do anything.
Well, and look, but then also, if you're an individual, and I'm an individual, I swore when I went to basic training I would not end up speaking as the common language in 18 weeks of basic training, because I had to go back home at some point, and I couldn't talk like that to my mom and dad. The profanity was like the roar of a volcano, and I didn't lose it, and that's because I didn't want to. So I sit before you. Am I running over time?
No, you can talk forever.
Well, you could ask me another question if you'd like.
Oh, well, so did you, do you still contact people that were working with you when you were in the military? I mean, you had friends from the military still, or?
No, I'm 93.
I know.
Most of them are
I know.
dead.
I know why. No, that's true. Right.
In fact, I had friends when I was in the Army, and they were mostly older friends, even then when I was in service. So, you know, they left a long time ago. And the friends I spoke of, the German friend and her husband, the writers for the San Francisco Chronicle, and people who were of that, I don't want to say caliber, of that training in life, and had done something with what they'd been offered vocationally. They were my friends, and I had friends overseas that I kept in contact with in Australia, and but most of my friends are gone.
Now, you were in Australia?
No.
Oh, okay.
Samoa was halfway between Australia and Hawaii, and that's where I was.
So did you write your, you were close enough to visit your parents probably on,
No, I was under
Vacations.
contract. I got a certain amount of leave
right.
as a federal employee, and I came home, as I said, to help my father teach me some truths in life. And they know about my Samoan family. After I'd pretty much run my course of vocations, the family, Polynesians, I'm interrupting that statement, Polynesians travel the Pacific like we drive from Kauai to Tulsa to Broken Arrow. It's in their ethnicity. They travel by canoes and nothing with birds and currents and fish to it's just a part of who they are. So the family moved back to the States. In the meantime, they'd gone back home, and they're Mormon, and they moved to St. George, Utah. And so I get another telephone call after no contact for several years. Hello, we're back again. And I said, again, where? I was in California with my friend who was dying, and stopped by and see us. Well, there were children there with my name that I had not even seen. And since they were babies, they left when their mother, a beautiful woman, had 5 of them around her, said, we have to go home because Daddy can't take care of us anymore, her husband, my grandson. But then after they had grown, they came back to reestablish themselves in Utah and offer the kids a better school, a better hospital, a better opportunity to do what they wanted to do, which was to play football. And so they called me and asked me to come to live with them, which I did for 8 years, and depleted all my bank accounts to help them buy a house and get all the necessities to live a good life. And then when that scene changed, and the mother got a good job with the Polynesian Cultural Center, basically BYU University in Hawaii. Then they all went back to Hawaii, where most of them are today. And I had no reason to want to go to Hawaii. I wasn't asked to. I'd been there. So that's when age and wisdom finally caught up with me. And I realized that if I've never asked anyone to take care of me. Even with my brother and sister-in-law, when I moved back and lived with them for 2 years before I moved here. My whole goal was not, I wanted them to have their life together after, Jesus, how many years did they have a married life? And they're so compatible. I wanted them to have that time, that precious time together, not even with me. And I was the one that introduced the two of them and supported them. So I realized it was time to come home.
Okay.
And it's a difficult decision.
What did they say about that?
Oh, they were all
Okay.
in favor of it. They brought me here,
Mm-hmm.
and they've come almost every week. It's a 45-minute drive
Mm-hmm.
from where I grew up, and so they love me, and I love them. And at the same time, I don't want to do anything that would infringe on their romance, which they've kept going for all these
So are
decades.
your other siblings, have they passed?
Yes, they're all
Yeah.
gone. My two older sisters are gone,
Right.
and my youngest sister is in assisted living, and she's not well.
Okay.
So my brother Ted and his wife Martha are my family.
Right.
And they know all the stories I tell and are told about our parents' life then. I can go to bed at night here and reminisce about my childhood, because I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'd go walk through the neighborhood to check to see if someone has some new chickens in their chicken flock, or someone had planted a garden. Life was that simple and that blessed.
Right. So, in a way, the military, though, did give you something that, for your life, that
Without the military and without the bill, I'd still be
Right.
working.
Well, yes. Right.
Trying to save some money to go. Getting a degree was my first goal in life, and because there was no Pell Grant that anyone told me about, I had to work and do it myself, and I did it willingly, because I realized in the end, somehow, something that I needed physically would open up, someone that I could carry on a good conversation with, and that I could, if not spend a lifetime with, spend some damn good times growing up together. It never happened in terms of a companion, but I found the children, and I am their papa.
So does your brother have children? Did you say?
Yes, he has a son who's at Oklahoma State University,
Oh.
and his daughter is a nurse with hospice. She can't treat me here, but she's on the team.
Oh.
She comes here
Really?
weekly. Yeah.
Okay.
She's been with St. Francis 25 years.
So it's your niece?
My niece, my brother's daughter, yes. She's lovely.
Okay.
I'm her favorite uncle, and she's my favorite niece.
Oh, good. I just, your story is great, is unusual. Have you, what So you saw all the rivers, you said, that you...
Well, not all.
Oh, you haven't seen them all?
You said
Okay.
all. I saw a few.
A few, okay. I didn't know
I've
if you'd
seen the
been...
Amazon,
Okay.
and I've seen the Tiber, and I've seen Rome and its rivers around the city.
Oh, okay.
I traveled as much as I possibly could, because at the time I started with American Airlines in the 70s, I could leave work, as many of the secretaries did, early on Friday afternoon, catch a direct flight from Tulsa to New York, pick up a flight to Portugal, spend a couple of days in Portugal, and be back at work on Monday, ready to go again.
That sounds like a great deal.
Well, it was wonderful, and that appealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, in all honesty, and I'll have to say this, I have no problem talking with you because I want to be honest, and I want to be, I want to help you, help others understand who we are as people who have, quote, been in the military. But on the other end, life is interesting because my granddaughter, who's now 28, she has her degree in graphic design that she got in Utah, a very lovely girl, told me a few months ago, she said, Papa, she called me, she's now in Utah, I go on a date, she's unmarried, and she said, I come home and think, what a boring time. Because she said, all my date wants to do is talk about my brothers. And I said, you know what your problem is, Gabriella? Honey, you've seen something of the world. I lived for 8 years with your brothers. I can't talk to them. I can't talk football. And that's all they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell them about Greece, and I can tell them about Italy, and Spain, and Brazil. It means nothing to them. And I said, you spent 2 years in Korea. You know that language.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it is to come back to the States and start to answer a question that was asked of me about the Pacific and be introduced, or interrupted rather, by someone telling you about person who died down the road. We are too insular in our thinking.
Oh, yeah.
And it only comes with breaking the shell and getting out and seeing what the rest of the world is like. So I said, accept it. You will find someone somehow that speaks Korean. And by the grace of God, she did. A young man in the military, in the Air Force, who flies to Korea on a secret mission. So it is possible.
How long did you work for American Airlines?
24 years.
Okay.
And they immediately took away my medical when I retired.
Really?
Really. It's tough out there. And so I said, thank you, God. Thank you, God, I raised my hand that I could type and wasn't ashamed of it. I wasn't a sissy any longer. By the opinion of someone who didn't know me.
So, how did that, so when you, how old were you when you, well, I guess you retired from American,
Oh,
right?
yes, absolutely.
Right.
I retired at 62.
Okay.
I was an editor. The American Airlines every airline is constantly revising maintenance manuals and all these things. And I was an editor for one of those
Okay.
publications. And I was walking down the hall in the administration building, 10,000 people in Tulsa, mechanics, people in the administration, what have you. My boss, Oz Redding, an engineer, was coming this way. I was going this way. And as I passed him, he said, "Psst." And I looked around to see if there was a cat or a dog in the room, not a human being. That psst was for me. And he said to me, Jim, I'd had a good recommendation meeting with him not too long before. I'm okay. I'm almost 62, but I was still okay. But that's not okay when American comes to involved in a reduction in force.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "Are you going to take that it's not a golden parachute, much of anything, but they were going to pay until you reach 62, pay your Social Security, but then you'd have to take early Social Security, which cut down on the full amount, of course." And I went to sleep that night, and my parents had died, and I thought to myself, I don't want to be, as a man who's possibly still working there, 40 years at American Airlines and die behind a desk. There's something else I want to see and do in life. So I walked into his office the next day, and I said, "Oz, you asked me if I would take 6 months, reach 62, and leave." I said, "Yes. Yes, I will." I said, "Oz, I'm going to die." And I said, "I have a few things I want to, I'd like to have stayed, paid off my loan at American, and then I would feel a little bit more, a little freer to make that financial move." And I thought to myself, I'm not a forceful person, but I thought, you asked me, I'm going to ask you, are you taking it? Are you taking the reduction in force? He said, "Oh, no. He said, "I just bought a new Hudson automobile." He redid Hudson automobiles, if you remember. And he said, "My wife wants to redo the kitchen." And so help me God, I'm telling you the truth. Within 1 year of my conversation with Oz Redding, I didn't see him again, and I'll never see him again, because both he and his wife had died of cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And I left. I've been 30 some odd years
Right.
surviving that conversation and that psst to me, as if I were an animal. No, he was a good man. He knew I wasn't an animal.
Right.
He was just trying to get my attention, and he got it. Thank you, Oz.
Well, I know there's a lot of things you'd like to still discuss. Is there anything else you'd like to say today?
No, I can talk to you about this place if
Okay.
you'd like, because I realize you have other people that you want to speak with, but this is my story. And when I first moved here, and I'm reflective enough, I don't just do things in life. I have to consider consequences and what have you. And I ask myself, how long is it going to be before I call this place home?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I know you do.
Yes, yeah, I hope you could tell.
Yes.
And I ask people if they know Sonny. I'm pleased to say they do. It's not because I'm carrying a banner or anything, but I'm not afraid of them. And I am so grateful
That there's a place like this?
there's a place like this, because I know what it is to care give. And I know that this has afforded me an opportunity to be cared by people who love me
Right.
and who have eliminated my having to ask Ted or Martha to break up their beautiful relationship and take care of me.
And that's because you were in the military too.
Yes,
That's
and the only one in my immediate family in the military. Ted didn't go. He was a kid when he got married. He was too busy learning to be an electrician, and he lived a beautiful professional life too. So,
so that's another thing the military did for you though, right?
look,
Yeah.
I'm not, I hope I haven't left the impression that I am
Oh, no.
anti-military.
Oh, heavens no.
Oh, I bless the day, as I said, I raised my hand.
Right.
But I, in the back of my mind, though, I had that thought, I need you in order to do this. And if you don't kill me in the process, I'm going to be someone with a degree, and I'm going to make straight A's. And I'm going to show all of these kids who crash-stared pigs in high school while they were in FFA and I was typing. So there it is.
And this is the Claremore Veterans Center that you're calling home right now.
Oh yes, Mrs. Okay, thank you. 2 weeks I was here. Went to an appointment in the South Clinic. If you have not been there, oh my gosh, it's like the Ritz. You walk in and oh, you're taken care of, and people, you think, oh, thank you, Jesus. Oh, how lucky am I? Good doctors, and they're so,
Are you talking about the clinic at 91st Street?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
the new clinic.
Right,
You go to the 41st Street, where you're,
right, I know, I remember that.
so anyway, the driver, they have a wonderful cadre of women here who drive these shuttles. You see all the cars parked out.
Mhm.
And I finished my appointment and joined them sitting there waiting for another person to complete his assignment. And one of the drivers said to me, "Sonny, are you ready to go home?" And I said yes, before I realized subconsciously in 2 weeks this was home. Home.
Well, that's great.
It's just where I belong. That's another world out there.
Mhm. But you've been to the other world too.
Well, yes,
haven't you?
yes, I have.
All over, all
Yes,
over it.
yes, I have. But you can find that other world
Anywhere, right,
here
right.
in the people who care for you.
And most of the people here have been in many places too, right? I mean, they're military people.
Oh, the military.
Yeah,
But again, then I run the risk of combat versus typing.
oh, well.
So you pick and choose conversations.
Oh, okay.
And again, and I spoke of this to another woman who interviewed me this morning, as my social worker, and her name is Amy Russell. She's lovely,
Yes.
and you can be so honest with, you can be who you are here.
Mhm.
There's
Great.
no pretense. But I told her, I said, I heard that there was an audio meeting, classic books, and we could go down and listen. It's something like going from Gunsmoke to Charles Dickens. Everyone is not who I am. Thank God. Nor am I who everyone else is.
Right.
But that's the beauty of it. We're all different human beings. We're all children of God. And we have to be content we are. Otherwise, we can't love God. That little piece of paper I left with you, the title is from a statute. Who loves himself knows his Lord. You know yourself, you know a little bit of who made you.
Well, I think we'll end there. And thank you very much
Well,
for your service and for being you.
thank you. I accept that compliment, the last.